Germany's new Chancellor, Friedrich Merz, has had a rocky start. In April, his conservative Christian Democratic Union Party was overtaken in the polls by the hard-right Alternative for Germany, or AfD, which even topped some for the first time, with 26% support. Then in May, Merz required 2 rounds of voting in the Bundestag to become Chancellor, the first time in post-war history that a candidate has failed in the first round. But since then, the CDU has steadily climbed in the polls, and the latest ARD Deutschland Trend survey from this month found that 39% of Germans are either satisfied or very satisfied with Merz, a 14-point increase compared to April. So in this video, we'll discuss the latest German opinion polls, why the CDU is gaining support, and whether it will last. Explore which world leaders are winning and which are losing every week with our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard. Find it on the TLDR Podcast YouTube channel or in your favourite podcast app. At the German election back in February, the conservative CDU, led by Merz, finished first with 28.5% of the vote, followed by the AfD with 20.8%. The CDU was widely expected to win, given that Germany's former ruling coalition, consisting of the centre-left Social Democratic Party, the Greens, and the neoliberal Free Democratic Party, were immensely unpopular during their tenure, and at the 2025 election, they all ended up losing vote share compared to 2021. During the campaign, Merz focused heavily on the economy, which had struggled under former SPD Chancellor Olaf Scholz. The Scholz coalition's constant squabbling, especially over the budget, led to a rise in support for both the CDU and AfD, with Merz trying to present himself as the candidate for stability and pragmatism, following in the shoes of former CDU-CSU Chancellor Angela Merkel, while the AfD ran on a primarily anti-establishment platform. But Merz also took a tough stance on immigration, suggesting in 2024 that Germany should transfer asylum seekers to a safe third country, like Rwanda. And his CDU manifesto included some hardline immigration policies like accelerating deportations, suspending family reunification for asylum seekers, and providing limited bed, bread, and soap services for deportees. The manifesto also pledged harsh action on every form of extremism, violence, and terror, specifically through expulsions, removing residence permits, fighting both right and left-wing extremists, and closing mosques where hatred is preached. This was interpreted as Merz's attempt to attract back former CDU voters who'd switched to the AfD, which AfD leader Alice Weidel argued amounted to the CDU copying the AfD's policies after having rejected them for years. While this sort of rhetoric did probably help the CDU beat the AfD at the election, it ultimately backfired. The CDU's coalition deal with the centre-left SPD wasn't as hardline on immigration as Merz's campaign rhetoric suggested, and that was probably the main reason the AfD saw a surge in the polls earlier this year. But in the past couple of months, things have shifted, and the AfD has fallen from its peak, while the CDU has steadily climbed in the polls. The latest ARD Deutschland Trend survey published this month shows the CDU on a recent high of 29% support, a 2-point increase compared to May, and the AfD in second on 23%. So what's behind this steady rise? Well, we've got 2 main ideas. 1, Merz's handling of the German economy, and 2, Merz's handling of geopolitical tensions. The first is the perception that Merz has been strong in addressing Germany's stagnating economy. In March, before Merz had even been sworn in as Chancellor, his CDU proposed and successfully passed a €1 trillion spending package through the outgoing German parliament, allowing the government to loosen its strict, long-standing borrowing limit, known as the debt brake, in order to allow for more investment and public spending. While this did concern some more fiscally conservative CDU members and undermine public trust in Merz, given that he campaigned against substantial reform to the debt brake, the policy itself enjoyed cross-party support and was broadly popular with the public. A poll conducted in January by the IPQ journal showed that a majority of Germans supported reforming or abolishing the debt brake, a figure that had steadily risen over recent months. And even if you're one of those people who like the debt brake, once the money's been borrowed and the government is splashing the cash, you're unlikely to complain, especially given how well fiscal injections have been received by the markets. In just the past month or so, both the Kiel Institute and the IFO Institute have upgraded their growth forecast for Germany, with the Kiel Institute revising its growth forecast from 0 to 0.3% in 2025, and from 1.5% to 1.6% in 2026. Not massive numbers, but some growth is obviously a lot better than negative growth, which is what Germany experienced for the last 2 years. This might be why the latest ARD Deutschland Trend survey found that a majority, 55% of Germans, are confident in the government's ability to strengthen the economy, compared to 39% who have no confidence. The other main reason for the CDU's rise is Merz's international role. Merz, who vowed to be a very European chancellor, has been at least rhetorically more hawkish on Russia than his predecessor Scholz, and has also been vocally critical of the Trump administration in the US and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's war in Gaza, elevating Germany's international profile. Merz is a staunch Atlanticist, but also recognizes the need for Europe to bolster its own industries, having said during his election victory speech that Europe should aim to achieve independence from the USA. Despite his reservations about the US-Europe relationship, Merz appears to have done an impressive job managing Trump, having had a successful meeting with him at the White House a few weeks ago, at which the two leaders agreed to boost cooperation on trade. The other point to make here is that Trump's isolationism, involving tariffs against dozens of countries, taking the US out of the 2015 climate agreement and the World Health Organization, and acting without consulting with the US's European allies, also seems to have galvanized pro-EU sentiment in certain member states, while curbing support for Trump-aligned Eurosceptic isolationist parties like the AfD. That ARD Deutschland Trend survey from June showed that 52% of Germans are confident in the government's ability to better represent German interests in the world, compared to 41% who aren't, suggesting that Merz is handling geopolitical events well in the eyes of the German electorate. As for whether the CDU's rise will continue, it's difficult to say, as there are many domestic and international factors that could affect polling. On the economy, for instance, the CDU seems competent so far, but there are still a multitude of obstacles to overcome. Germany has an aging population, with 4.8 million older German workers, or 9% of the labour force, due to retire by 2035. Analysts have pointed out that Merz's debt brake reform may also actually complicate things here, as simply freeing up more money for investment isn't enough to get the economy moving on its own. It also needs to be accompanied by workers to build the roads or bridges, for example. Likewise, Merz's international position now looks strong, but it's unclear how Germans will feel about issues like Ukraine or Israel as the global situation changes. So how Merz handles these conflicts and the Trump administration's actions could also affect the CDU's polling in the future. Now, when talking about topics like these, it's important to be precise, and precision is also crucial to our sponsor this week, Henson Shaving. Henson's AL13 razor, which they produce at their aerospace machine shop, perfectly holds blades at a 30-degree angle and extends them only 0.0013 inches, less than the width of a human hair, which means incredibly tight tolerances, very high standards, and superb precision, offering a much healthier shave compared to the overpriced plastic razor cartridges. And speaking of plastic, Henson's razors are completely plastic-free. From the blade to the box, everything Henson sends you is entirely recyclable, meaning that while you protect your skin from expensive razor burn, you're also protecting the environment from adding to the 2 billion razor cartridges that are thrown away every year in the US alone. Finally, buying Henson razors is simply cheaper. No longer will you be forced into buying those expensive and unsupportive replacement blades, as Henson blades cost about 10 cents each. This means that you can replace your blades far more frequently, so you don't need to keep dragging a dull razor across your face in order to get value out of that overpriced plastic. If you want to try it out, then you can go to hensonshaving.com/TLDR, or click the link in the description, and then you can add a razor and 100 blades to your cart. Once you've done that, add discount code TLDR at checkout, and you'll get all of those blades totally free, and you'll be on the way to a healthier shave.